Bob has been around in the energy biz for quite a while. He used to be the director of warm training, which now is Ecoworks, and then he became director of Michigan Interfaith Power Light. He's going to talk about St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Detroit, where he did a power purchase agreement. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. All of them, been very, very interesting, and I can tell, people have been at it for a while. I guess I've been at it for a while too, at least with the energy efficiency. St. Peter's is located in Corktown in Detroit, so a few things that I'd say right from the beginning. The reason it's titled Faith in Action is that for us, this was not about just efficiency or money, but it's actually a matter of environmental justice and care for creation, which I'm sure it is for a number of you as well. The reason for the issue of the not for sale, when it says not for sale church, is because there's such rapid gentrification and such that we were getting calls in some cases a couple times a week from developers saying, would we sell the church? Would we sell the parking lot? Could they relocate us, quote unquote, to a more suitable location? So our pastor had the idea, which we heartily endorsed. We put up a real estate looking sign that said, not for sale since 1858. And then it says open house at 10:30 Sunday morning, every Sunday morning. We're a very small congregation, but determined to hold that space as holy ground. And in fact, we're doing a very big renovation of the basement of the church. Has had a soup kitchen since the 1970s, and we call it the Holy Underground. So we've been doing energy efficiency, and we're going to be doing that in very much, other kinds of things. So for us, the solution, was a power purchase agreement, which I know a lot of you are familiar with. The church wouldn't be able to do the upfront money. I did what I call putting our money, my and my wife's money where my mouth was, and we created a LLC and so we did the power purchase agreement because it's a fairly small system. It's only 11 kW. We wanted something much bigger, and we have the electric load to cover much bigger, but I'll tell you why we couldn't in just a minute. The project data, we wanted, it's 11 kW. We wanted, the reason we couldn't is because we supposedly are in a historic district, and the Planning Commission staff told us that we probably wouldn't be able to do it. We'd get flack from the Historic Commission. If any of you have been down in Detroit in the last 4 or 5 years, if you haven't, there's amazing things going on. But if you stood at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull and looked around, ours would not be the thing that you would think is not historic. And putting some panels on this church would not have been compared to the building that's going on. You'll notice that the ROI to the investor is only 2%. We wouldn't have been able to donate enough money to put that array on, but we'll get all that money back. So we could invest it, and we chose to have just a low return on an investment. The PowerPoint agreements locked in, so the church was saving money from day one. I'll be getting into a little bit of the results in just a second, which have been pretty good. The key points there. The shot is of the installing going up onto the flat roof. The church has actually got the church and was a parish hall next to it. The church was built in 1929. the parish hall a couple years before that. We call it the Peace and Justice Hive. And there's probably, let me think, 8 or 9 very small nonprofits or other groups that pay a very low rent, much lower than they could get in the area, that are doing some really good peace and justice work or food work or other kinds of things that are a benefit to the neighborhood. This is just a shot of the installation, but you'll notice that where on the racks are weighted down. One of the questions, of course, that people often have if you're thinking about a flat roof, which has its own challenges, is, oh my God, you're going to put 100 holes into a flat roof? No, there's no holes, all right? It's all weighted down racks that are lightweight, very lightweight racks. The panels are very lightweight. And so it was not a problem or worry about the inside of the parish hall to have this installed. This is a shot facing downtown. I'm not, until we can put an inside access up to that roof, I ain't going back up there for a while, because it's a pretty tight thing to get from the fire exit with a ladder to get back up there. Because it had to be, and because it is in a so-called historic district, these panels are not very visible, right? And that is something that we wish they were, and we want to do a better job of sort of celebrating and reminding even our own congregation as well as other people that the solar panels are up there. This shot that you see, and I'm seeing, I don't know if you all, John, can you see the full shot of the or the faces or the screenshot in the way?
Yes,
in other words, can you see
we can see the picture and more to come, right?
Yeah, but can you see the whole picture?
Like I see half the screen is a picture.
Oh, okay. So can you see the panels on the flat roof?
Yes.
Okay, good. So in the distance there is the Michigan Central Station that you may have been hearing and reading about, that Ford bought, that was empty for decades, and is really driving a lot of housing now, because people are going to be, there's so many thousands of people are going to be working there. To the right in the green, as you see, is a apartment building that's under construction, and this shot is taken from a 7-story hotel that's about 150 feet from the church. And it's that left side of the church is the south side, and that's the side that we wanted to put those panels on, and more. It's only 11. We wanted to do a 20 kW system. We may yet do that. I might be coming back to GLREA and saying, can you maybe help? You got some ideas on how we can? Do we have any precedent around the country to say, look, our global warming trumps your historic designation concerns? Because I just want to do battle on that. I just feel like we want it visible, and we want to be able to celebrate it. In general, the system has operated as advertised and as we expected. And the weakest link has been the human factor. And if you look at, I'm not going to, that chart you see, you'll see that right in the middle, you may not be able to read it, but it's that the middle part is June and July, that flanks May and August. June and July are way down, which everybody knows they should have been way up. So I, like almost everybody else on this, we have, I use the Solar Edge app. It's on my phone, and I don't look at it very often. And sometime in very early June, somebody walked past the disconnect, or we had a power outage and the utility used the disconnect and then didn't put it back on. And I didn't notice. And so we lost a lot of power in the, peak time of the year that we would be doing that. And that would be bad enough, except I will confess to you that that was not the first time this has happened. It happened the year before too, that I lost some serious on this. But the good news there is, of course, the church didn't lose anything except the difference between our rate and the Sun Commons rate, that's our LLC, and the utility rate, because the church only pays for what this generates, would pay the LLC for what it generates. So when it wasn't getting power from the solar panels, it was just getting it from DTE. Let me go back up here one, though, more to come. We're looking at our parking lot is off to the left of where you see the church, and we're about to get it paved in an environmentally sound way with bioswales on 3 sides to cut down on storm surge. And we're looking at having a couple EV charging stations put in at the time we're doing that. That kind of strange flat-looking building on the other side of the church is a parking deck for about 200 cars that is going to have 20 charging stations. But they ain't got them yet because there's such a supply-demand problem that they may not have them before, I'm told they may not have them before January. We're looking at having not only the charging station, but we're in discussions with a nonprofit group called Fourth. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. That is actually a community rideshare program that's trying to get EV cars into undersourced, lower income areas. And I think all of that's going to happen before the end of the year. Let's see. So in terms of lessons learned and learning, and I really need to have somebody else from our house of worship be tracking this, because I can't be trusted. And that's what I meant about the monitor performance and then the celebrate. I think that too often, because things are not visible, we're not really celebrating what we do. Although, as a house of worship, going back to what I said at the very beginning, this is not a one-off for us. We have, for example, a season of creation that we, just like any other liturgical season, Pentecost and Christmas and Easter, we celebrate a season of creation in the fall that acknowledges the debt and the interrelationship that we have with the rest of the world. Let me see. I was racing through this because I appreciate how everybody's been kept to the times that they intended to, and it was intended, and people may have questions, not just about this, but about a lot of other things. So we're happy. We're feeling like, we're focused on energy efficiency, but we also are doing what we can about power and trying to look towards the future. And in a way, those panels, that upgrade, all of that was a way of making a statement to say, we're not going anywhere. The church is going to hold that ground and be there as it has been for 158 years and serving the underserved. That soup kitchen since the 70s, 5 days a week, 50 weeks a year, There were times when it was doing 500 people a day. We're about 100 to 125 people a day. And we also have a shower and laundry service for the homeless as well, for the same hour, same time. So solar was just one thing, but it's an important thing because again, it's for us a matter of care for creation and social justice. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Bob. And we had why don't you stop the screen sharing? We had a couple of questions in the chat. One had to do with the incline of the panels. Why not a greater angle?
Sure. That faces that's west facing, right? So you want to get both the east, you want to get as much sun as you can get, both the east and the west. And so you got to have a little bit of an angle there, but we, when in talking to the installers and that was what was recommended. And it makes sense to me because again, it's the west side, it isn't the south.
And was there any issue with the roof and the weight of the panels?
No, that thing was that thing's got cement roof, right? It's got, I mean, like they built those things to last. That was built in the 1920s. So the walls and the ceiling are cement. There was no problem, and there won't be any problem if we put those panels onto the south side of the church either, because when the church was designed, it was designed that the architects had in mind putting a big spire on top. People were big on spires back then, and so there's like steel trusses that go across the top and inside the church. So that thing is over-engineered, and we won't have a problem with that if we can put panels on the south side. Thank you, though. A good question.
All right, go ahead.
By the way, before the hotel got built, we insisted that they show us the shadow pattern, and they had to do a computer simulation to show that we were not going to be suffering not only from the solar panels. I mean, not only would it block the sun in any way from the solar, but it's on that side of the church that the big stained glass window is, and we wanted to know if the hotel was going to be blocking the sun on the stained glass window. It doesn't come up that high.
Go ahead, Jay, with your question.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you on a job well done. That looks like a really good installation. For folks wondering what to do with flat roofs and not wanting a no penetration way of putting panels up, those particular racks that you were seeing in his photographs, those are indeed available through McNaughton McKay. And of course, you buy the bricks to weight them down from your local gardening store. But we installed a bunch of those, a volunteer organization here in Ypsilanti, Solar Ipsy, and we used those racks both on the Ypsilanti fire station, where almost the entire roof is covered with solar, as well as on a public pool building here in Ypsilanti. So those racks are incredibly easy to set in place, to rate them down, to mount the panels, to run your wiring, and the whole time never ever making any penetrations into the roof. An excellent product.
Thanks, Jay. Jim, go ahead. Oh, you got on mute though.
Sorry, thanks. A question for really anybody who can answer it. I'm interested in this doing a setup for my home. The life expectancy on my roof is coming up, and I'm wondering if there's anybody who has any insight on solar panels versus solar tiles. If I'm gonna re-roof, then should I just do tiles instead of getting a roof and then paying to put panels on top of a new roof? I saw Cliff raise his hand there.
Yeah, go ahead, Cliff.
Yeah, so just a couple of things, and take this with a grain of salt. I'm not a big expert. Our roof was coming due to be redone, and so we had Neighborhood Roofing do our roof, and they also do solar. So it was sort of one deal for the whole thing. I investigated, and as far as I know, and this is a little out of date, At the time I did my research, Tesla was the only outfit that did the solar tiles, and it was not anywhere close to the same price point. It was like double, I
It
think,
was ridiculous. Yeah.
if you could even get it.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, the other thing that's just good to know is that you can have a little economy of scale if you do the roofing and the solar at the same time, and solar is stronger than a roof. And so you get that once it's in, you get that benefit, but you don't want to put solar on an old, ready to be replaced roof.
Yeah, I am aware, just from reading, that there's a number of companies now that they aren't necessarily the tiles, but they're solar shingles. And so they are out in the market, but they are pricier than just the more traditional panels. But there is a number of companies now that could offer you, what looks like solar shingles. But and there's a company in Oakland County, Luma Solar, who's started out as a roofing company, and they do a solar kit. I had one installed in my house back in 2010. But there's other companies now that are in the marketplace because, Tesla has always been a little pricey. But I think on the average, you end up paying more, but maybe that's worth it for you.
What was the name of that, John?
The company I was Luma Solar, LUMA. They're in Oakland County.
Just a shout out to Michigan Saves, that if you're thinking in terms of roof as well as the panels, that then they can do that kind of a combination along with insulation. So it's really worth looking into if you've got it nicely timed so that you can do a roof and solar at the same time.
Yeah, I'm glad Bob mentioned Michigan Saves, because it's a great financing program for a whole bunch of types of projects, including energy efficiency and solar and air heat pumps and geothermal. But are there any questions for any of our speakers, Adam or Cliff or John or Bob? We got another. Go ahead, Clayton.
My comment, not a question, is I feel it's a shame that you're having an issue putting panels on the south roof of the church. It appears as if the roof is kind of grayish in color. And I'm sure there could be panels that are kind of closely matched to the color of the roof, but I can't see why, for historical reasons, they would prevent you from putting panels. I mean, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. That's just my comments.
Well, thanks. I can tell you that first of all, we were a little bit under the gun because we got true net power as well, because we wanted to, we weren't sure that the tax credits are going to follow into the next year, even though this was 5 years ago. So rather than try to fight that battle, then we decided, well, we've got the flat roof, and if we don't try it, they're going to say, well, just put them on the flat roof. But the other thing is, it ain't about us. It's really partly about, first of all, they claim that if they were to allow it, they risk losing something like national certification in terms of being a historic district arbiter. But what they're really also, I've been told, afraid of is because there's other historic housing districts, Indian Village, Grandmont Rosedale, there's other housing districts in Detroit that people have wanted to put solar on and they've been refused. And they're trying to like have this as a firewall. So I want to go after it, but it's not defensible to say, we probably could get it as a church. I think we could just shame them into it. Like, look around what you guys have allowed. There's not a 7-story building within 5 miles of that. You got to drive up to the Michigan Central. But what we were told is what they talk about was that they claim it's a national thing. And so that's why I need to do a lot more research, and I got to do my homework. And I definitely would, anything you all could help me with about find me places that have allow his solar panels in historic districts. Thank you.
All right, Abraham, go ahead.
I'm originally from the Netherlands. I grew up in, among others, a house from the 16th century. We have a bunch of those. And over time, with the changes in climate and use of the environment, the reality becomes that you have to change them and have to adapt, also when they're historic buildings. So I encourage you to fight that, because that battle is all over the US. And I think that we need to come to terms with the changes. And we're doing a lot of that in Europe with much older housing, and can use 400-year-old buildings just fine as long as we adapt. Thanks.
Thank you, Abraham. I got a question for Adam. Adam, I'm kind of curious about your contract with the utility to sell them power, the PURPA contract. How difficult was that? Some people have had experiences with their utilities. I know you're in Indiana and Michigan, but did you find that complicated or not too bad?
Oh yeah, it was really complicated and it took a long time. And I got to shout out to Harvest Solar, who helped me with the project, but they helped connect me with some people at the Public Service Commission and some other large installations that they had done in consumers territory and stuff like that. And that kind of got me started on the applicable law that I had to become familiar with to really come up with a PURPA contract with I&M. So when I did this project, I started it right after I finished my first installation in 2020. I&M didn't have a tariff option for anybody at all if you built bigger than 150 kilowatts. The Public Service Commission had 2 years ago told them that they had to come up with one, but they hadn't. And so in putting my project up, I actually had to work through a custom contract with kind of their corporate division that wasn't even approved. Like, the custom contract wasn't approved by the Public Service Commission. And then after we got the contract finished with them, they basically took what we did, presented it to the Public Service Commission. They were like, does this pass muster? And that's kind of how they built their tariff for arrays that are bigger than 150 kilowatts now. So yeah, it actually took much longer to work through interconnection and the tariff than it did to actually build the project.
It sounds like you were a pioneer. I'm kind of curious too, with respect to, do you have a contract with anybody to maintain the system, or do you just do that yourself?
So we do it ourselves with help from Harvest, because they kind of do the warranty service stuff. We honestly, we could probably field all the stuff on our own, as we do stuff with similar voltage ratings all the time, and we have on-site maintenance personnel. I do all the, kind of watching the system and seeing how everything's performing and stuff like that. And then, I mean, lots of the times it's just, if there is a problem, it's only an inverter that tripped off or something like that. We really haven't had any issues with hardly anything. Like Clifford said at the start, it basically just works. The snow falls off in the wintertime and it just runs. And aside from, maybe resetting inverter a couple times a year, it's pretty maintenance free.
I thank you for that. Yeah. And I should be, we'll have time for a few more questions, but I'd like to mention that, on the GLREA website, we've listed 3 local tours that you can attend, a couple on this Saturday and one on the 14th, the next Saturday. One's in Grass Lake, one's in the Detroit area, and one's in Okemos. And so if you're interested in attending a tour, there's multiple facilities in the Detroit one. The one in Grass Lake is actually Joe Trumpy, who's off grid, and the one in Okemos is a church, a Presbyterian church. So those, to get specifics about the times and location and stuff, just go to our website, glrea.org, and look under events. And then you'll see Solar Home Tour, and you go there and it'll talk about the program we just had, but it also will identify these 3 local tours that they ask us to help promote them. An opportunity to see stuff, and ask a lot of questions. So it's, let's see, 8:23, time maybe for 1 or 2 more questions. I know we've gone over, go ahead, Cliff.
Just a last word, following up on what was said about the historic districts and so on. Before we moved back to Ann Arbor, we tried to install solar on our home in Rochester Hills, and we did a lot of work, and we were denied by the HOA on aesthetic grounds. It wasn't, they thought it wouldn't be pretty enough. And so I absolutely stand by what everybody said about, having to adapt when it comes to ideas of historicity and so on, while of course preserving. And we also have to adapt our hidebound notions about what is pretty enough, because it would be a shame for that to continue to hold people back.
Just for people information, a bill has been introduced in the Michigan House related to restrictions that come from homeowners associations. Now, I don't have any idea what the prospects are, because there probably be a reluctance to mess around with the local autonomy of homeowners associations. But this is an ongoing problem around the state. And so a bill has been introduced. There'll be hearings, and we'll kind of see what happens. It is a problem that we keep hearing about. So let's see, it's 8:20. Okay, any last question before we break? Yeah, go ahead, Abraham.
Do you know what the number of the bill is?
Nope, can't keep that in my mind. But if you
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
The bill is House Bill 5028. They had a hearing on it in the House Resources Committee this morning.
Thank you.
That is 5028. It's in the chat.
Great.
Thank you, John. Well, let me thank our speakers, Bob and John and Cliff and Adam, and we really appreciate you spending your time and sharing your stories. And next week, we're going to have a presentation on community storage, which I think will be very interesting, about the whole idea. We're kind of familiar with home residential storage, and the utilities, of course, have some storage of themselves, but this would be more on a community scale. And so hope you can join us next Thursday. Until then, have a good weekend. And again, thank you to our 4 speakers.